Thanks for tuning in to Barbershop Sports Talk.
Do you think he would go back to college?
I don't think he's going to go back to college. He has talked openly during his time in Jacksonville about his disdain for recruiting and the transfer portal. And, I think at his age, he'll probably go and get that job at Fox back and take that cushy gig as an analyst, and that'll be the end of it.
So when you were talking about this a little bit, the media difference.
I'll take that right now.
Oh, you think so? He's going back to Fox, and he's going. Well, I mean, he's probably making $1-2 million a year doing
Fox,
that.
ESPN, somewhere. I think he's going to be a college football analyst somewhere. I don't see him coaching anywhere. Right now his reputation is kind of stained. He'd struggle to get a major job. It'd have to be somebody who's just, who's had sustained losing, who just wants to get over the hill and is willing to take a shot at it. If you say in the SEC, would a Vanderbilt interest him? A Vanderbilt, maybe a Mississippi State if they parted ways with Mike Leach or something, but I just don't think he wants to recruit. So I think even if he does get hired, you're going to have that problem of him not wanting to hit the trail and go get the guys.
And you were talking about this a little bit, the difference between NFL, media in the NFL and media in college football. Can you just kind of explain that difference?
So in college football, essentially, there's no locker room access. They basically decide what players they want available, and they can decide that they don't want to make any of them available. Dan Mullen did that this year while he was in charge of the Gators. He said he wasn't making players available for a few weeks because he wanted them to focus on football when they were struggling. So he was the only voice. And as a college coach, you can control that message and control that voice. And if you want to, you can shut it down and just be the only person that talks, or not talk at all. And I don't think anybody's going to bat an eye at college football. Practices are closed. Legitimately, a college football coach can control the access as much as they want to. In the NFL, that's not the case. If he starts trying to make players not available, the NFL is going to step in because that's marketing for their product. And that's how they look at it. They want these players. They want Trevor Lawrence doing an interview every week because it's marketing for his product. The media's practice is open by NFL rules to the media. We get to go out there on the practice field for a few periods and look and see things and talk to these guys. So it's just it's a completely different world. And when in the NFL, you got guys like Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, who, they'll break something at any point in any moment. And like Urban's last game against the Titans, he was up there saying, that we're going to find the leak and we're going to fire him. Well, you're not going to find that leak. Because these guys have been doing this for a while. You're not going to track it down,
Yeah,
if it was that simple, you wouldn't have Schefter and those guys constantly breaking stories. It's not that simple.
Yeah, the way they make it sound, it's probably more than one leak coming out of that building. Do you think part of this, too, is, and I think it's interesting, right, with just college football coaches in general, for making the transition to the NFL, they're just different jobs. And I think a lot of times we think, just because you're a head football coach, that translates to the NFL. But it's kind of like, right, like you're in media. Being in political media and being in sports media, they're both media, but those are two different types of media.
Whole different ballgame. And, college football's changing a little bit now. But, in college football, it was always the head coach was the only voice. And once you signed that scholarship, before the transfer portal, guys were really, he controlled it. You were stuck. If you got on his bad side, he could, derail your career. The transfer portals helped balance that, and NIL is changing some of that a little bit too. But, the head coach really controlled everything. He was the one guy getting, paid, and these are like 17, 18-year-old kids. It's a little bit different from a respect standpoint there. When you get to the NFL, these are grown men with families that are making more money than the coach consistently almost across the board. So, you got to know how to deal with people and know how to talk to players. And it seems to be a shock to the system for a lot of college coaches because it's different talking to a 17 or 18-year-old to talking to a guy that's, 30 with kids. It's different conversations, and some of the stuff you probably say to a 17 or 18-year-old about life are probably warranted, and they're probably more receiving. But by the time a guy gets to 30, he's got 10-year-old kid or something. You don't want to hear some of them same stories. That stuff doesn't work anymore.